So anyway, I'm Bruce. You all know me, I think, mostly. And here I am in beautiful, foggy Boulder, Colorado. And I'm proud to be executive director of the transformations community. And let's see. And what do I like about AI? It's a great co-intelligence, although I worry about what it's really doing in the background. Ramaz, over to you.
Hey, Bruce. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Ramaz. I'm joining in from Toronto. It's 11 here. It's supposed to be spring, but it's so foggy outside. I'm an AI fellow. Am I saying that right? I keep mixing up the words. With the team, I'm super excited to be on the team and to help facilitate this workshop. What interests me about AI is the fact that I've been able to learn so many things that I wouldn't have been able to normally. I would have been shy or reluctant in taking classes for specific things. That's what I'm super interested about AI on how it's helped me improve my self-learning. I will pass it on to Utkarsh.
Hey everyone, I'm Utkarsh. I'm joining from New York, which is mostly sunny, slightly gloomy today. But yeah, so at Transformation Community, I'm also an AI fellow, much like Ramaz and Matthew, and currently working on just applied AI integrations with a lot of operations that go on in Transformation Community. And I'm a recent graduate from Columbia Engineering, so I've studied a bit of the back engine of how AI works, and yeah, I was really fascinated by it. And I think with this effort here that we are putting in at TC, I think the integration of AI going ahead, I think we can steer it in a nicer direction. Yeah, I'll just pass it on to Matthew for his thoughts.
I'm Matt, and I'm also an AI fellow. And I'm from Massachusetts. And yeah, my background is crossing over between data science and design. So naturally, I'm interested and curious about how these tools can be used to support the creative process, but not take away from kind of the agency of creators, but how we can use it to support, local bioregional place-based contexts that really get to the kind of heart of, the local issues that we face.
Want to pass it along?
Great. Yeah, so I'm the last one, I think, of the TC group. I'm Haley. Nice to meet you, everyone here. And yeah, I'm the project coordinator for this initiative, but also working on many other projects in the transformations community. And yeah, sort of weaving everything together. And it's super exciting to be here and have you all here today. So I think we're still, let's see if we can wait a few more minutes for others to join. I don't know if Teresa or Umar or Scott, if you guys want to say any words about yourselves, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see Nick. Hey, Nick, you want to share a few words about you as another TC staff member?
Oh, hi, everyone. So I do things and stuff for TC. I think my official job title is fixer. I'm a network member. I'm a generalist, and I love to play with shiny toys. AI is the shiniest of all. It's also the scariest, and I use it daily. And I'm wondering these days about the question of trust and hallucinations. How do we know what and who to trust? So, Umar, I trust you next in line. Would you like to intro? Yeah, hi.
Thank you so much, Nick. Unfortunately, I don't have so much trust in AI. I'm more of a skeptic. All right, yeah. Umar Shiraz talking here from Islamabad in Pakistan. I teach. I'm a futurist, and I teach. Professional practices, which includes ethics for IT, and very important part of that is AI and ethics. So I do some thought experiments over there as well. I mean, I look at more of AI when I look around it. The more and more I hear about it, there's a term which comes to my mind. It's called snake oil salesman. That's what comes to my mind. I mean, lots of things being said about it. I don't know what the big fuss about this it is. At the same time, there are lots of ethical issues with it, which I'm really concerned about, and that is what brings me today as a futurist. I'm really concerned about the ethical impacts. So yeah, look forward to having some fun today. I think I came a little late. I don't know who I missed, but hey, I think Mr. Scott, have you or Teresa, have you been introduced? Everyone, please go ahead. It's a
Thank you
pleasure being
so
here.
much. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Teresa Züger. I'm from Berlin, and I'm leading the AI and Society Lab at the Humboldt Institute for Internet and Society. And my research focus and biggest interest is understanding how AI can actually support public interest ideas and goals, because I think that's not a given. It needs a lot of architecture and also purpose-driven approaches to achieve that. And I'm super interested in this conversation because I also submitted a session to the Transformation Conference, which was luckily accepted, to kind of challenge how we think about AI and if we maybe need a more differentiated thinking about how it can actually serve society and which parts of it are actually hurtful to that goal.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And last but not least, Scott.
Hi. I came a bit late too, so I didn't catch everyone. Karsh, you were talking about, I didn't catch the university you're at, so maybe you can put it in chat. I'd be curious. And Matt, I'm from Connecticut. That's where I grew up. It's been a long time since I've been there, but I have relatives in Massachusetts, so it's nice to hear your accent. I'm based in Spain. I'm an American. I've worked overseas in international development, humanitarian relief for about 30 years now. My graduate training's in geography. I'm an evaluator and do strategic planning. I'm interested in this group because I'm part of the International Evaluation Academy, which is a recently formed, how shall I put it, academy in the evaluation space. And some of its members have already interfaced with Bruce and others, possibly participating in the conference that's coming up in August in South Africa. But we're interested. We're already using AI a lot in evaluation. We just did a 3 Horizons futures thinking activity using AI to help analyze data. And that's what we're interested in, is the role of AI in evaluation. And I'll stop or end with saying that evaluation doesn't just include evaluating what's happened. It also very much includes futures thinking, foresight, looking to make recommendations about what to design, that, and then recommendations about what to do in the future. So I'll stop there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Just real quick. One, I thought this meeting was on Thursday evening. That's how it showed up in my Google Calendar. I don't know why. I just got back from travels. Maybe I put it there with a jet lag mind, or maybe Google Calendar's playing with me. So I got to take off and take my daughter to school, but I'm putting on my headset, and I will, not to school, to after school activities. So I'll follow this as best I can.
All right.
Great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. We had a few people kind of jumping in and out, so they might be some people joining us here shortly, but we can get started already with our slides. So let's share the screen. Great. So can everyone see the screen okay?
Yeah.
So I'll hand it over to you, Bruce.
Thanks, Haley. Yeah, so I just want to get into discussion as fast as I can. So I'll just provide a brief overview of this project and orientation here. So we are, this is a kickoff of our AI initiative relaunch. So we've been working together, our team, the three fellows, Matthew, Rimaz, and Utkarsh, and Haley, the project coordinator, and I for the last couple of months, to support a platform for community engagement around AI. And, we're here, well, we've already kind of gone over it. AI is expanding rapidly globally and also into sustainability spaces. And we really think we can have an active role in taking control of the way we use this tool to serve our purposes ethically. So next slide. So let's see, next slide. Let's just jump right in. So today's agenda is to examine ethical tensions in real world AI scenarios. So we want to kind of dig into this to help create and sort of field test this ethics manifesto, if you will, that we've put together. It's a living resource that we're going to continually revisit throughout the path of this project to guide sort of responsive. How do we guide value-based, responsible use of this technology? And so, the idea is that we're not just bringing together AI experts, the lived experience of people engaging with new technology, what really matters. So next slide. Yeah, so ethics is so important here because this AI is evolving faster than we can make sense of it. And there's no universal ethical notebook, rule book for this. Context is really important. So how do we, as situated practitioners, how do we show up and act ethically amid all this uncertainty and difference, and really focus on who benefits, who's left out? The sort of ethical issues here are deeply personal. How does power flow around the use of AI? And so we're trying to develop a shared framework, but also recognizing the diversity of perspectives here. Next slide. So this is we need to kind of engage with this in the context of complex systems. So we want to be very reflexive here and begin by examining our own lenses and assumptions. So to use AI ethically, we sort of need to reflect on both the personal and collective level of how to, avoid blind spots and surface our deeper values and how they relate to this technology, and kind of collectively nurture a sense of trust and accountability around how we use AI to serve the purpose of transformation. I think we need spaces like this to just talk and engage, share our experiences in practice. So the idea is to sort of open up, have an open invitation where people can share their insights and feedback. And I think now it's over to you, Haley.
Yeah. Thank you, Bruce. So as Bruce was discussing, so how do we kind of manage all this complexity? How do we navigate this complex landscape? And I think what's really important is that we each come to this with a different role, different worldview, different capacities. And at the transformations community, that's why we anchor our work in archetypes. So seeing that as a tool to help us surface the practical wisdom that we need to engage with AI, or this kind of combination of lived experience, context specific understandings that help us really respond well when we're engaging with these messy real world situations. So practical wisdom could look different according to your role, your background, your expertise. So we came up with these set of archetypes, like a collaborative facilitator who brings people together, the knowledge synthesizer who makes sense of complexity, or
Your slides are off, just in case you didn't know.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, just so I know you want to show the archetypes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for telling me that. Let's try again.
There we go.
Okay, maybe I'll just do that so that in case it acts up again. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about. So now you have the visual. Yeah, so thinking of these not as sort of rigid roles that we're confined to, but rather this sort of network or system of different hats we can wear when engaging with AI. So to try to weave this all together, our fellows have been working on this AI ethics manifesto to try and help and uncover the practical wisdom that we need to engage in AI. So I'll hand it over to Ramaz to describe what you guys have been working on.
Well, thank you, Haley. Thank you, Bruce. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Our ragtag multidisciplinary team of myself, Matthew, and Utkarsh have ourselves been trying to grasp and keep up with the advancements and the breadth of outputs right now happening in the sector. It honestly makes, throughout the process, we had to deal with a lot of existential thoughts, and because we're all from different backgrounds. We have a futurist, we have a technologist, we have an artist, and a lot of conversations and navigations, which led us into developing a draft versions of the AI Ethics Manifesto of the Transformations community. And today we want to use this time to really co-create and refine it with all of you who have joined us. It's the first time we're opening it up. And I believe you have fresh eyes and imaginations to help us tweak this into going to the right direction. To just give you a quick overview of the manifesto itself, we've split it into three parts. There was a study where we engaged on different manifestos out there, different frameworks, different methods, as is the creative process, while trying to keep up in the race when things are being made. There's probably being a manifesto being made right now as we're on this call. So we wanted to keep this as a scaffolding and as to make it more expansive and as customizable as it grows. So it applies to different contexts. Our three-step manifesto is of course, to commit into acknowledging AI's capacity for transformation. We therefore declare our unwavering commitment to ensure the power serves the flourishing of all life. We're centering it around a life-centered perspective. This is our shared purpose to build and to use AI not for mere efficiency, but for equitable and regenerative outcomes across social and ecological systems. So we love metaphors, we love images, we love mental models. That helps us think. And as soon as we were engaging in the stormy sea of AI development and advancement, one thing that we for sure needed was grounding. And for grounding, we took the manifesto is rooted in the 4 T's of the transformation community as the cardinal directions, which is temperance, transformative learning, translocalism, and transdisciplinarity, which forms the cardinal direction for a compass to navigate the stormy seas of AI. And with that, we have adjacent quadrants, encompassing some of the features, from some of the qualities, and some of the direction that we have taken, intersecting with our 4 cardinal directions. A quick read through: we have fairness for all beings, holistic sociological, socio-ecological indicators, local context awareness, communication, inclusive decision making, open data practices, regenerative impact. So that's the navigation part. This is a mental model. This is a model that, again, it's growing. It's in its draft stage. That we suggest we open it up to you to interpret it in whichever way you want to use it. But in essence, we envision this as having multiple purposes. In its literal sense, as a compass for evaluation to decide if you want to use a tool. 2, as grounding to decide if it's the right tool for your needs. 3, and direction to help navigate tensions or ethical dilemmas while using a specific tool. The application of these 3 is in step 3 is reflect, where for each of our dimensions, 8 guiding principles, we have guiding questions, which these are draft questions. For example, I can read out a few. for fairness for all beings, who benefits, who might be excluded would be a good starting point to evaluate or think about before starting to use an AI tool. Then we have regenerative impact. How does it support local ecosystems, open data practices, who controls the data, and how is it shared, and inclusive decision making, who is the AI omitting, who should have a seat at the table, etc. I'll quickly conclude. The manifesto is a commitment for us to ensure AI supports regenerative, just, and equitable outcomes across social and ecological systems. It is, however, a wicked problem, but in the path of not finding solutions, but asking better questions. It is an opportunity for all of us today to contribute to the core refinement of this manifesto. What lands with you, what you feel is missing, etc. And with that, I will pass it over back to him.
Great. Thank you so much, Ramaz. Yeah, so you just heard a lot of information there, and it can be very complex kind of putting this all together. And we'll have a chance in the breakout rooms to really dive into this manifesto. So if it was looking a little bit, kind of small there on the screen, we'll be diving in depth. So yeah, any clarifying questions from you all? Any kind of initial reactions before we go into our breakout rooms? Yeah, Teresa.
Thank you. I have a question that kind of is going a step backwards, because I know that a lot of people have started writing AI ethics guidelines and ethics manifestos. The UNESCO has written an important one. The research of Anna Jobin has looked at hundreds of AI ethics guidelines. To not be, I don't want to be the devil's advocate, but I would like to understand, what is the purpose of doing a new manifesto, and what does it deliver that others have not delivered, and how are maybe others reflected or built upon but acknowledged also in your work? That would be lovely to understand, to know like what the difference is that you're going for.
Yeah, I think Ramaz, you might be the person to answer that.
Yeah, sounds good. That's a question we've been debating within ourselves there. So we're really happy that someone brought it up. One, and we are completely in acknowledgement of all the work being done in the field and in the sector, which was one common thread we found across most of the frameworks and the manifestos being done, where one, they were pretty one-dimensional. They were like a start and end of a conversation. They listed certain things and like, yes, this is the end of the conversation. Sometimes manifestos were rooted. There was a disconnect. There were manifestos, there were frameworks, there were guidelines, and there was kind of a detachment in understanding what to use for which specific purpose. Because for a manifesto, you say something and it kind of ends there unless you prove it in action. Just to simplify that and to give some direction for members within our community, to consolidate some of the thoughts, some of the strengths in some of the manifestos, we found some that were action oriented. We found some frameworks that were highly complex. It was like a complex web of diagrams. So we wanted to not to be reductive, but to be a conversation, which is why we, instead of going with a principle, for example, like inclusive decision making, decisions have to be inclusive, like a description of that. Instead of it being a principle, we wanted it to be a question you ask yourself that you can use when you do your work, when you're looking for direction, which we will explore in the following the breakout rooms on how we're using some of these questions, because just as a meta perspective here, a lot of the discourse going on in the AI field is it's not about AI having the capabilities to do all these things. It's about us having the capability to ask the right questions. So we're kind of taking that meta approach here, where like we need some guiding questions while we navigate this. There are principles out there. There are the principles out there, the frameworks, but we need some questions again grounded in a not too complex framework for our community members to understand. I hope that answered your question. Apologies if I went on a tangent.
And I think Scott had a nice compliment to that, Ramaz. That was really, I love the way you framed that. That we're a community of practice, and we've spent a long time figuring out what does that mean? What is our community, our domain, and our practice? And so we're kind of working our way back from there. If this is the kind of work we do, what is a kind of context or a practice-specific ethical framework as opposed to a universal ethical framework for transdisciplinary reflective practitioners and action researchers, if you will? Teresa, I just want to go back to you in case you have a follow-up, and I'd love your thoughts on that as well.
And I think it's a very interesting approach, because I think that's what's missing very often, that there are a lot of ethical guidelines and values, but if you look also into the empirical research, they're hardly ever used. And so also, looking to how to address this gap, I think is a helpful step. However, I would love to dig deeper into understanding what values we include and how maybe this also speaks to the existing models that might be still having some interesting input. So I will just listen more and understand better to maybe then be able to add a little bit or help with connecting that to existing work.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Teresa. And Umar, you had a hand. Maybe you can share a quick reflection before we go into breakout rooms.
Sure, great. Just building on what Teresa said, I mean, one place where I'm really frustrated while teaching ethics is that we have these great ways of looking at ethics. So Kant, utilitarianism, social contract, all this stuff, and all this is great. But all of them say, yes, surveillance capitalism is wrong. All of them say, getting into anybody's mobile phone or getting into anybody's laptop is wrong. But they have no binding, they have no binding power. I'm just curious. I mean, I'm sorry, maybe I'm getting a bit ahead. I'm like putting the cart in front of the oxen over here, but I'm just wondering, so one more thing which you're doing, which is great. It's important. I think these frameworks are important. These dialogues are important, but I'm just wondering, is this going to be one more ethical theory? How would you intend to actually make it, would I say the word binding? How do you make this that actually
Can I speak to one thing that I think diversifies our what we're approaching this, builds off of UNESCO. We're noticing that various frameworks might maybe lead with the human perspective. And we really wanted to center life more in our manifesto. And we're really, that's a core aspect. And also kind of to answer Umar, we're really trying to make this context specific. So a lot of our questions and values are really trying to, when you're asking about that action-oriented, like the binding aspect, I think that's maybe what you're referring to maybe. I mean, we're really trying to make this, this kind of three-step process, something that you can apply in your local context, given those local relational concerns of place. But yeah, that's an opportunity area I felt is seeing how can we center this in a life-based way and something that's even planetary, because a lot of the work in the TC community is, about planetary design. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, this is super interesting discussion. And we've actually kind of put together these 3 different scenarios to dive into the manifesto more concretely, to kind of have parameters to work with that are built, are based in action. So I wanted to just share, 3 different options here. And I think just due to our kind of intimate nature here, we can just all join one room and keep this conversation going, since it's so interesting. But I think, maybe in this sense, we'll just, to keep it simple, choose one. Let's see. Oops, trying to get over
No, it's
here.
your kids, you treasure them all.
Sorry?
It's like choosing between your children.
Yes. I think what could be interesting is the systems strategist for nature-based transformation. So yeah, we've put together these, various scenarios, and they're all, kind of similar, but in the structure. But yeah, if we focus on this, we can think about, okay, how does AI, offer these sort of fast solutions for predicting crop yields, for example? But they're maybe designed for more industrial level farms and not local contexts. So how could a systems strategist who works on complex systems to identify leverage points for change potentially, sort of balance that out? So I can go into detail on the scenario in a second, but I just wanted to share the Miro board with you all, so you can access it if you would like.
I just shared it on the chat here.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah, so how about we all just take a minute to read through this scenario and try to kind of wrap our heads around it, and then we can go through some guiding questions. If everyone can see the screen here. I can also read it aloud, maybe if Scott, you are on the run, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, and it's in the Miro board too, right?
Yeah, I just don't know. Can you see the Miro board, Scott?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm driving, so.
Okay, I can read it out loud if that's helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we're having this scenario where a systems strategist is helping a rural community adopt nature-based solutions to fight urgent soil erosion issues and increase local farming outputs. And the project uses AI tools to predict crop yields, but these tools were designed for large farms, not the community's small-scale farming practices. So the ethical dilemma is around kind of two themes, but this is just a prompt so we can explore more. One is around efficiency versus local knowledge. So the AI tool provides fast and scalable advice, but they don't account for the community's unique soil conditions or traditional farming practices. So how can you maybe strike a balance between using the AI tools for those kind of quick scalable solutions, but also taking the time to have this more customized approach to integrate local knowledge and needs that cannot maybe be quantified in that way? And then the other issues around sustainability of knowledge and power. So relying solely on the AI tools could reinforce power imbalances and potentially, sidelining local communities. So how do you kind of balance that dynamic with using AI? And these are just a couple prompts. So I think we can, Nick, you had a question before we go into it? Oh, no. Go ahead. No? Okay. So is that making sense for you all? Is the scenario itself clear? We can start by maybe thinking about what are these kind of conflicting issues that this scenario raises, just off of the top of your head. Any kind of conflicting values or beliefs or priorities that are at the kind of center of this dilemma?
Feel free to use the notes, or even like if you're not familiar with Miro, you can use the chat and add the notes into the Miro board. Or if you want to talk about it, please do that as well. I'll try to make notes on the board.
Yeah, if you just want to share your insights, we can also document it here.
Yeah, Haley, maybe give us an example of what you think would fit one of these boxes?
Yeah, I think, for example, we could, some of the values could be, potentially this idea around power. Okay, so are we valuing equitable power dimensions? Are we looking at it from a more technocratic perspective? Thinking about the underlying worldviews behind this. Are we trying to, what are kind of at those core values and beliefs? And you can think of it also broader. If this example is kind of getting you stuck, think about your own work as well. Like,
I think we'll come up with some good stuff.
Yeah.
Umar, you have your hand raised.
Thank you. One recent example as a futurist comes to mind. I was working with farmers communities. One was a tomato growing, there was a plantation, and the other was mango growers. And thing was, both of them are fighting the issues of climate change because of deteriorating climate change, intense heat. Both tomatoes and mangoes are facing, they're facing lots of issues because of them. Their local knowledge, their previous practices are not working. They need access to the latest seeds, latest, things which are happening in the world, latest technologies. They simply do not have them. I think when I look at this particular thing which has been placed in front of us, I don't know, perhaps maybe there's a bit more emphasis that local knowledge is something which has the solution for all problems. But when I worked with those communities, for them, the thing was that no, they need that help, that hand holding now, because for this type of climate, they do not have the requisite tools. Haley, you mentioned, the way their societies are structured. I was actually in a dilemma while working there because one of the things which the donors who were doing this foresight workshop, it was an Australian company, and they were asking that, you need to look at the gender aspect of it as well. So when I used to ask them, where are the women in the fields and all, and they said, like, women, we usually do not allow them to come to the fields, or we do not allow them into this. They are there, they have some roles which they play. We do not allow that. That was what I was just there as a reporter. I had to report all of this. So my one thing which I look at sometimes some of these issues is perhaps we put too much emphasis on this thing called local knowledge, natural based solutions. Perhaps that they have some magical genie which have solutions for everything in the world. I think that bias or assumption exists, but that's just me. Please feel free to dissect what I said. Over to you, folks. Yep.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. I think let's put a pin on that, and maybe Teresa, if you want to share your thoughts, and then we can kind of do a little round robin on that. That's great.
Yes, thank you. So one thought I have is that, first of all, one mental lock that we quickly get into is that if there are AI solutions out there, one thinks that it might be the right solution or one that one has to consider. But I think the first question we should always ask is this an AI problem? Because the problem you describe, people not having the knowledge to adapt to a new climate, is not necessarily an AI problem. It's maybe an educational problem. And an AI solution will not be a good fix, or might just be a very small part of a fix. So that is always the first question. And that also connects a little bit maybe to one thing that I would want to bring into the general conversation of AI ethics. In my work, I kind of stepped a little bit away, like not diminishing the importance of AI ethical approaches, but we looked at what is in the public interest, which is a much more political category, to go away from what does the developer decide, or what does this important decision maker decide ethically, more looking at what does society need, what is a solution that serves a community here. And so from that perspective, the question, is AI the right solution, is always the first question to ask. And the second point I would want to make is, yes, a corporate solution might be a good match if it is possible, if it's the quickest and best solution tailored to also the needs of a small farmer. However, very often, the best tools, like in our research, we're mapping a lot of tools that are in the public interest. And very often there are initiatives coming from this very specific problem where problem owners, in a way, contribute to developing a new solution. And that's, of course, not everybody who can contribute, but there are organizations that are more, problem owner driven and people driven and problem driven to actually, collaborate with technical institutions and start developing their own, much smaller, very often not so cutting edge, but very efficient AI technologies that serve the problem and that serve the problem better than sometimes and more tailored than sometimes the one fits all coming from top-down, corporate solutions. So if I were this strategist, I would look for alternatives, and I would look for open source alternatives that people have already developed and that maybe I could start building on and create a collaboration between people who have the same problem, if it is an AI problem. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I think that could even be, first question for the manifesto is it an AI problem? And then we ask, all these sort of, following questions, and you kind of have this tree approach. I think, did someone else have a hand up before we kind of move forward? No. Yeah, no, these are super interesting insights.
I'll just chime in. Maybe you're hearing me two different places. Are you getting an echo?
You sound great.
Okay. I like the input from both people. I'm getting an echo, but I like the input from both people. Teresa, one thing is AI solution. The example is really good because it relates to a lot of the programs that I work with in development, and we evaluate and such. And it's where evaluation is ex ante, diagnostic evaluation, helping to assess not just needs, but NERCs, needs, interests, resources, capacity. You can put a P on there for power. For me, I think AI can be very valuable in that work, but I don't see it as a solution. I see it as a tool. And the engagement of the local stakeholders, one of the key ingredients in systems thinking is multiple perspectives. So their engagement to provide those perspectives is imperative. And what I can see AI possibly doing is combing through secondary data. And if data has been collected through primary methods like interviews, I don't want to say focus groups because that's from the private sector, but group interviews in creative ways with transcripts, that data can be analyzed, and AI can also be used to do causal mapping between the themes that it teases out. But all of that can be sense checked with the local stakeholders. And that's where I think it gets interesting. It's fine to be transparent and let them know that you're going to be using AI, but you need their sense check on it to validate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Seeing it as a system of evaluation working together and that plurality. Teresa, did you have a thought to respond to?
I can totally connect to that because I connect to this idea that AI is not a solution in itself. And there is sometimes the problem that we think, okay, we have a technology, we know that the technology has a certain performance, and then we think, okay, that's the fix. And very often that's the case, for instance, in diagnostics. But it turns out if we do research, like how people interact with this technology, that even if the diagnostic performance of a tool may be great, in collaboration with people, it might be worse because we forget the stickiness of social processes. We forget that people do trust or not trust their own expertise. And we forget the side effects that a technology has in changing a knowledge system and an expert system, such as the medical field. So what we really need to do is we need to not only give people a technology, but we need to then also assess how they're interacting with it actually, how it changes the process, and what potential side effects it might have that we don't yet know. So for instance, if people are depending on something that provides a certain knowledge, do they lose their own expertise? Is that important, or does it maybe not make a difference? But very often we forget the side questions, and we're just in a process as a society as to understand what kind of side effects AI has, and we need to kind of look at the implementation of AI in a more holistic way. So I think for a manifesto approach, it might be interesting to not only think about, okay, how do we bring the technology to the people, but how do we then also accompany the process with a reflection and really reflecting the side effects of this new socio-technical system.
Yeah, that's super spot on, Teresa, and it really relates to our focus on, how are we cultivating this practical wisdom and, seeing that as absolutely a regenerative interaction rather than a degenerative one. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of guide us back to the manifesto, actually, because I think all of us are kind of pointing to these tensions here, and just being mindful of the time as well. I think, Ramaz, you put some color coding dots there, which is a great idea, that maybe we could just kind of quickly see, based on our reflections that we shared here, do these questions land with you? Do they make sense in terms of, asking these right questions to sort of, uphold this, more regenerative understanding? Or are they, maybe weaker in some dimensions? So, yeah, we could just take a moment to kind of dive into this.
Do we want to pick out the ones that are most resonant, or maybe go through them one by one? What are you thinking?
Yeah, let's see. I guess from the fellows, what would you say is the top 2 or 3 questions that you feel are most important to share? Have us focus on?
I think for this specific scenario, we can go back to local context awareness is pretty strong, response to the ethical dilemmas we're facing in the scenario. I would suggest that as my one.
Perhaps we can go all around and and folks can say, well, this one resonates with me and why. I like that approach.
Just take a minute to look at it.
Number 2 is really calling out to me for some reason, because it feels like, as opposed to a single cause and effect, that there's feedback somehow. I mean, that, and how would you engineer that? I'm not sure. But how would that be sort of part of an ongoing dialogue as opposed to simply an intervention?
I would agree with Bruce. I think number 2. I also think number 7, we always need to be careful of the risks of using AI. I'm not a AI guru, but I think what I've picked up, I know what I've picked up in just the chatter and the discourse is the algorithms tend to be dictated. I'm hearing an echo, so
You're
maybe it's
good
'cause
on
I'm
our
s- my
side.
phone on. Okay. Let me see if this works. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Um, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I can't hear you, but probably has something to do with. Anyhow, I'll keep on talking. So I think one of the things that has come up in another community of practice I'm involved with is the algorithms tend to be dictated more by a northern Euro-Western type of paradigm, even the language being imperialistic. This is in a context now where you have decolonization being the new buzzword for an effort that's been around since I've been in the development industry, which is trying to localize and meaningfully engage people, local people. So that's one concern that I have. And again, I think one of the ways that I would have approached that is just being very transparent when using AI with stakeholders and addressing these things out loud and say that's why we want to sense check what's coming out from it. The nice thing about AI is if you rip apart its outputs, its emotions aren't hurt because it doesn't really have emotions. So, but I do think that do no harm and proportionality is very important. It's the ethical bucket of things.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Scott. Yeah, Teresa, you had a thought.
Yes, I most resonate with the first principle, actually. Even though I'm thinking about it, I think what is really new and super important is that you put life at the center of this thought. And I think this is really a contribution. I've seen this in indigenous ethical approaches where country is much more important than the human-centered approach. So I think this is really a contribution to asking this question and kind of shifting the discourse. However, I would challenge the word fairness a little bit, because I think fairness, meaning everybody gets the same treatment, it could be challenged and has been challenged by scholars saying that actually it's about justice and not so much about fairness. So that's maybe something to think about. But I still think I get where you're going with this, and I think this is really important. And just one tiny remark. I'm always starting to be skeptical when people make AI a subject. For instance, in the second one, how can AI become a catalyst? And we very quickly do this. This is our language about AI. And I think this is a tricky thing because AI will not be necessarily the subject being the catalyst. It might be used as a catalyst. And I know it's a very tiny thing how we speak about AI, but I believe it very much influences how we think and what we think is possible and how we think we will change things. So just a tiny remark on that. Thank you so much. But I think this is a really interesting approach, and I completely get it, what you're doing with this.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that actually points into a little bit the principle 8, how are we communicating this? How are we, trying to meet people where they're at when we all have so much different understandings and backgrounds with AI? And so I think this also, what I'm hearing from the discussion is maybe we do, another revision and kind of see where there are overlaps, how these sort of questions connect with each other and implications there, since there are some interesting relationships unfolding. So I think Umar said that he had to jump out for a minute, but he's coming back. And then, Scott, you had something in the chat. Do you want to expand on that?
No, not really. I think it's just I appreciate that reminder from Teresa. We need to remember, as I was saying earlier, AI is a tool, and it can be used to create a sculpture or slit your wrists. So I think it can be used to create things or do damage, depending on how it's used. And it's the people who are using it that I think determine, what it is and what it isn't, or what it's being used for and what it isn't being used for.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other concluding reflections? Just noticing we're almost to the hour, and then we can kind of wrap up and see about next steps or upcoming workshops, etc. So any remaining reflections?
Actual hand up intentionally this time. Just a very quick one.
Yeah.
I was really inspired by our earlier discussion around what is different about this. And for me, Principle 1 and Principle 4 and many others, but those two together bring me back to this key differentiator of being in service to life as the ultimate guiding principle, and what is often left out of AI systems, as we know, as has been discussed.
Great. Well, I think that's a wonderful way to conclude and give us, the energy to move forward. Scott, you had another question?
Yeah, just a real quick point, piggybacking again on Teresa's point, and just wordsmithing, which I often do as an evaluator and reporting. You might want to reconsider the questions, not how might AI be shaped, but how might users, or how might we use AI
Great
to
point.
shape?
Yeah.
How can AI how can we use AI to, so just wordsmithing it a bit, because it puts the onus on us, the users of AI, and not AI itself.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great point, and it'll shift our perspective. So we'll likely, look at it from that other side in the way that we're actually trying to get to. So, super. All right. Well, thank you all so much for this super interesting discussion. We wanted to just conclude and notify you of some upcoming workshops. So we have our second workshop scheduled for June 3rd, and they're always on Tuesdays. So if that helps with any of the, scheduling issues that one of you had earlier. But so June 3rd, we'll actually start an hour earlier at 4 Central European time. And then our third workshop also on, there's a typo here. This is July 1st. So it'll be about a month later, same time. We'll be doing a kind of interactive tool demo for our second workshop. And I think these reflections that we're sharing today are very helpful in kind of how do we want to frame this? What are the kind of questions we want to ask? And then the third workshop is still a bit up in the air. We'll see kind of what evolves from the tool demos, but we were thinking to invite the community to come and share their work around what they're doing with AI and transformations, contexts, transdisciplinarity, et cetera. So if you want to stay tuned, I think you are all actually on our mailing list. So you can just ignore this note here, but we will be following up with a kind of synthesized report from this workshop, and also reach out to you about potentially spotlighting your work as one of our archetypes on the website. So I think we'll conclude with that. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And I'll just hand it off to Bruce to say any closing remarks.
I just wanted to add one small thing, maybe. If you have anything that you'd like for the team to explore, or you want to talk about it, please feel free to email Ely or Bruce, or add to the report, because we've been working as a silo now, and we'd love to hear what the practitioners and what you all want to explore. Thank you.
Thanks, Ramaz. Yeah, we had a series of webinars last year, but we thought the webinar format was too flat and that we needed to engage with these tools and see what it meant to develop practical wisdom around using them. And so we kind of want to invite the community to share what have they learned through practice? How have these ethical principles emerged in their own practice? And we really want to sort of see if we can create a way to share those sort of insights through use, that kind of practical wisdom. That's sort of a key point for us. So any ideas on how to do that well, or if you've done it effectively in your own work or in research settings, would love to hear ideas about how do you cultivate and share practical wisdom in the use of AI, the right tools in the right place at the right time. And Scott, I see you have your hand up. Do you want to make a last comment?
It was actually left over, but I will say rather than just asking people to show examples of how they used it, one thing that I've seen that's very effective is a sandbox approach, where people have a need and they bring it to a community of practice to help them brainstorm how they can use AI. Like we get some of these younger AI graduate students. I'm looking at Matthew and Yudkarash, who I can see their pictures there. We pull them in, and people who are Teresa, that are more familiar, because I'm not a bit of an academic, more of a pra-academic, people working in the field saying, hey, how do you think we can use this to do this particular thing? We're doing an assessment to implement with 4 climate funds to implement a program. And we know there's a lot of data out there that can probably be effectively analyzed through AI. Can you guide us through that? And then people learn through going through that process. That's another way. So not just looking at how it has been done, but pulling in expertise to look at how it can be done.
I love this idea.
Yeah. Teresa, and
there might even be some consulting fees in there.
Yeah, it's a new and emerging practice, right? It's sort of become identity. Teresa, anything you want to add along this sort of the line of how do you share practical wisdom?
So we've developed in our team 2 projects of our own, because our approach was to not only think about what is public interest AI, but also to do something and learn from the practice ourselves. So I could share those examples that are still like living. And also I could share the challenges that we had in really developing from a public interest purpose-driven idea. So I could definitely bring that in if that's something that is helpful to the community. And another thing, that I could definitely do is, so we've been mapping projects around the world. We've been mapping them to SDGs in our research to understand what are people doing and what is AI doing in these contexts that are away from the mainstream of AI development. And I could happily share our results that we're now also submitting to a conference, but I could give you a sneak preview and also give you some examples. If especially, the environmental AI uses are interesting, I could give you a spotlight on some of those examples on what I found as the most interesting uses of AI, because there are really very unknown examples out there that are under the radar for a lot of people, where AI is maybe not kind of the cutting edge technology type of model, but it's actually super helpful. And I could happily share some of those good examples.
Yes.
Yeah. Please. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. I'm happy to do that.
It creates sort of asynchronous sharing. So website, social media, we're going to use the transformations community's channels to kind of invite people to participate. And also we're going to summarize this session and share it online. So we're trying to look for a variety of ways to share these ideas and practices emerging in the field. So we'd love to follow up with you to enrich that effort. Thanks, Teresa.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me in this session. It was really interesting to understand what you're doing, and I'm super excited to go to Johannesburg and meet some of you at the conference. Yeah, I for my new project where we are evaluating AI projects that are trying to achieve something for the public interest and sustainability. This will be a very important community, I think. So I'm really looking forward to also learning from all of you and bringing in what we learned so far.
Fantastic. Amazing. Thanks, Scott. I'm sure your antennae went up when you heard that. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming, and we'll follow up with you soon. Okay. Team, why don't you stay? Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, Umar just came in. He just wanted to say hello, I think.
Bring him back in to say hi.
Yeah. He had to step out for a second. Let's see.
We're an extra credit moment here.
Yeah.
Hi, Umar. We just wanted to welcome you back and just touch base with you before we wrap things up. Can you hear us?
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, needed to step away for a few minutes.
Problem. Yeah, I think our final question, which maybe we could pose to you as well, is how do you share practical wisdom around the use of AI? And literally, how do you share it in the context of the transformations community? What would be ways where we could create a way for people to leapfrog the kinds of practical wisdom that you might ordinarily achieve in practice and actually share that, sort of create more learning and more sharing than might occur if we were all sort of proceeding in our usual isolated ways. And just wondered if you have any if that challenge that we're wrestling with now resonates with you.
Okay. Bruce, I'm really sorry because I was just putting on my headphone. Could you repeat your question? Oh. I'm really sorry. You said something. I got into the last part, but the first part. Could you just say it short and slow and let me? Yeah.
What is it? How can the transformations community enable people to share practical wisdom around the use, the ethical use, and ethical and effective use of AI while retaining our critical lens?
Well, first thing is these dialogues and these case studies, I think they are very good. They're quite useful. When you have these case studies, then it becomes a little easier for people to actually speak up, to share their, experiential learning. I think that is useful as case studies. Repositories are good, but I'm not sure if people are able to, attend to them or, be part of them for long periods of time. Unless you're already part of a community and you're contributing it for long periods of time, then I think that becomes difficult. I've been part of so many communities. It's hard, after some time it becomes very hard to keep track of each and every one of them. Right now I was working on AI ethics, so I just jumped into this one. Otherwise, I missed a lot of work with the transformations community is doing. So I think these sessions, I think these are, I said, worth their weight in gold. I mean, nuggets of wisdom which can be collected here. This is what comes to mind immediately.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll follow up. You're on our mailing list, so you'll receive a follow-up report, and we'll invite you to continue to share your reflections in the next workshop. So thank you so much.
Sure. I just have one thing to say. Let's say when I see this model, I think there's some places where we could contribute. How can we do that? So let's say, how can I do that if I want, as a futurist, if I would like to contribute? So let's say one thing which immediately comes to mind when I look at that model is, where is for example, there's, I'm sorry, I forget the community's name, but it's like, they have a seat at the table for the 7th generation. So the 7th generation, are we thinking of them as well? So if I were to bring such a thing, how do I put this? Who do I talk to? How do I contribute to that? Just wondering.
Yeah, that's a great question. We're actually developing this asynchronous learning platform. So we'll be inviting you to join that, and we'll have the manifesto on there, and you can share all these kind of great insights there. So we'll be rolling that out soon. So great question.
Yeah, with the idea that single set of ideas, but a sort of a cloud of ideas around what are the ethical principles that we should apply, to sort of and to keep it open. So it's not just in or out, but this is the seed, and this is the plant that grows is the insights that the community provides, which reflect a variety of perspectives and might apply differently in different contexts. So I love that idea. That's the first one on our list.